Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video on pivot tables, we're going to continue going through that real-life example of big data put into small, simple summaries. Okay, so now let's get back into creating these small, simple summaries using pivot tables for our manager. And we've already done this sum of sales for the last 10 years. And now they want us to do the sum of sales by company. So when we select the pivot table, let's go ahead and look for our company, and let's use our company name because company number, if we throw this in here, let's put it in the columns real quick. You'll see it's just 10, 20, and 30. That's kind of a hard description if you don't know what it is. Obviously, if you're working at your own company, this makes sense to you. But in this video, let's just go ahead and use the company name. Let's throw it in the top. And it's fine to have it like this. What I don't like, though, when we're just looking at this little bit of data is I don't like reading across. I don't like using horizontal space. I like using vertical space, especially when you're adding numbers up. So adding horizontally is much more difficult to see versus having it stacked on top of each other like you're used to when you just are using paper and pencil to add things up. So a vertical representation, in my opinion, would be better in this case. The next one is we're going to go ahead and take a look at company by year. So now we got to put in year. So if we put year across the top, then it really goes wide because there's more years than there are companies. So in this case, we would want to flip-flop that and pull my fiscal year, 2007 through 2016, into the row labels. But notice when we put it in here, all of our companies continuously get duplicated. And to save space, let's go ahead and put those in the columns now. And when we do that, then they're listed across the top, and then the years are listed down the rows. So then when you want to look at what did everybody do in 2009, well, we can come across here and we can see Cruder Management made $8.5 million in 2009. Overall, all three of the companies added up made $24 million. Even though we're adding across now, it makes more sense to do that than to have it flip-flop the reverse way with fiscal year going across the top and the companies going down the rows. Next, we're going to have to go ahead and strip out our fiscal year and put in our customer. So I'm going to pull out my fiscal year, and then I'm going to come in here, and I don't know if you remember, but description short is where we kept our customers, vendors, employees, and inventory part numbers. So I'm going to grab this description short and throw it here. And notice that it's all customers. There are no vendors or employees or inventory parts. That's because we are already filtered on sales. So if I pop down in here and say, hey, select field, I want to look at my description short. And you can see that there's a bunch of other things in this field that are not listed on the table. So we have customer, employee, inventory part, vendor. Well, we've filtered that out already from the top field above it, which is account name. See how we have it here in the row quadrant? We have account name on top, and we have already filtered in the account name. We filtered out the inventory, payroll, and SG&A and other expenses. All we have are sales. And sales, by default, we're always going to be selling it to a customer. So you're going to get the full list here, but when you look at the data that gets displayed on the pivot table, it's only going to be customers because there are no sales that exist for a vendor or an employee and so forth. So this is making sense, but you can see that we have all of our customers listed here. All the way down, let me hold Control-Shift down, and we have about 80 customers or so. And it's really not a summary anymore. It's more of the details. So Excel has given us this filter that we can filter on the description and say, hey, I want to take the values here and I just want to see the top 10. So if I show the top 10, I can actually change this. Let's do top 5. It's a little bit more condensed, so I'll do top 5 items or top 5 customers is what we're going to be looking for, and hit enter. You can see that these are the top 5 customers that work with all of these companies. So it's really looking at these numbers at the far right that it's adding up. It's not specifying by company. As you can see, these are a bit lower, this one and here and here. But overall, these are the top 5 customers in the entire umbrella of companies. If we want to look at just one single company, well, we can filter that with our column labels because the column labels holds our company names. So if we pop down on this down arrow, we can select just, let's say, Cruder Capital and see what are the top 5 customers here. And there are different lists than what we had just seen. And notice that they're not in any order. Let's go ahead and put them in smallest to largest because these are negatives. So we're going to have to go to more sort options. Those two options are actually just talking about the label name. So we don't want to sort it or organize it by label names. We want to sort it by the numbers here. And we're going to go into ascending, so it's smallest to largest, and we're going to look at the sum of amount. And I'm going to hit OK. Now it's in that order of our best customer from the top and then our 5th best customer on the bottom here. Okay, so let's jump into the next one. And the next one is by company, by year, by customer. So now we have to pop in year again. So to put year back in, the question is where do we want to put it? And we can put it, I would say, in a hierarchy area. So let's put it in between the two here and just let it drop in. And this looks pretty good. So it gives us the top 5 customers by year and then by company, Kruder Capital. And we can actually pop this out and clear this filter so we can see all 3 companies. And we have those results. And remember, these customers, it's really over here that we're looking at for the grand total. Obviously, this customer didn't have any sales for development. So if we filtered for development, AM customer would no longer be listed. So let's do that. We're looking for AM. AM customer no longer exists on this list. It's a completely different set of customers that are specific to Kruder Development. So let me get out of here and clear that filter. Now let's go ahead and look at what it would look like, just so we can see if I have fiscal year beneath the description short. So I'm going to drop it here and you can see it's just looking at 5 individual customers, 1 customer all the way down, how'd they do for these years? And then second customer, how did they do for these years? 3rd, 4th, 5th. And so when we look at this data, it's telling us a different picture. It's saying, what are the top 5 customers within the last 10 years? So this customer is our number 1 customer for all of 10 years straight. So if we had to analyze over 10 years, this guy is our best CG customer. They spent $3.6 million with us over the last 10 years. And that's the best customer that we had. So in this view, we're looking at the entire 10 years, and then we're looking at by year after that. How did they do by each year? But if we flip it back and put fiscal year between them, now we're looking at, okay, in these specific years, what are the top 5 customers? So we need to understand what our manager is asking of us before we go ahead and make some of these assumptions ourselves. Let's go ahead and check that one off. Sum of sales by company, by year, by customer, and then also by project. So the last thing is we're going to add in project here. So to do that, we're going to have to think, all right, now where do we want to put the project at? Do we want to put it in the columns or do we want to put it in the rows? And so let's just take a look at what it would look like in the columns, just for the heck of it. And notice that we have here, Kruder Capital, we have 4 projects. We have Miami, New York, and San Francisco, and our overhead projects. And then it's listing downward and you can see it there. Now I like this view with what we're doing, but I would rather only see it by 1 company at a time. If I'm only going to look at 1 company, say Kruder Capital, then I can see it a little bit nicer. I have a Kruder Capital total with a grand total next to it, which kind of duplicates itself. So I'd rather take this out. Notice that I got on this down arrow and then it was able to select all of the data downward. I can right click from here and just say, hey, take off my subtotal. I don't want to see that anymore because I have a grand total, which is the same thing. Obviously, if I had all of the companies selected again, I would want to put that subtotal back in there because it would be grand totaling all 3 companies. Let's see what it would look like if I put it into the row labels and then where would I want it in this row quadrant. So let's just pop it in the bottom and just see what it would look like. And it looks really busy. So let's pop it up 1 at a time. And that looks a little bit better. It tells us Miami project, what are the top 5 customers in that project? And then New York, what are the top 5 customers in that project? So it depends on the analysis that you're trying to do or trying to achieve here to understand where it needs to go in this hierarchy list in your row labels. Let me pop it up one more time and see what it will look like here. So our Miami project over the last 10 years by customer in this one. I personally think it would be best suited if I was going to analyze this to have it in the columns. And then also, as you can see here, there are no sales right here for Kruder Capital in Miami for this list of customers, because this list of customers is looking overall in the grand total here to show that these are the top 5 customers in 2007 over all of the projects. So if we want to filter it down to just one project, Miami project, let's go ahead and do that. And I need to say the select field. I'm going to pop it down and say project name and say I only want to look at Miami project. Okay. It's a completely different list of customers. And here are the top 10 in this case. So this is a much more condensed view. Notice that we have all of the criteria that our manager is looking at, but we've filtered a lot of it out, filtered just down to one company, one project, 1 year, and 5 customers, and then the next year and the rest of the customers. If we wanted, we could filter out the fiscal year, so we're only looking at the most current year, 2016. And here's our small simple summary of analyzing 30-some thousand rows all into a nice and neat summarized box. So let's go ahead and check that one off.